the Only One podcast, and may it be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
Wes, you came up with an idea that I thought was pretty genius for today.
Shocking.
Yeah, it's a good topic. I thought it was a good idea. So go ahead, take it away.
So
lay out the foundation.
Part of what's interesting of mine and Cuckoo's dynamic is we are both pretty big baseball fans, not to be baseball players, ex-baseball players of any stature.
Right.
And we both like New York teams.
Yep.
And we both kind of fell in love, with the lack of a better term, with baseball at almost the exact same time, because he got into baseball in '86.
Yep.
And I got into baseball in '87.
Yep.
So, you know, we mirror each other in a lot of that. And, you know, you've talked about the reason you got into baseball was your dad. Yep. You talked about the story about your dad buying y'all the Kmart All-Star packs.
Yep.
And then got y'all the box of '86 Tops.
Best Christmas present ever.
And, you know, you spoke glowingly about that. It was like a advertisement for, you know, some kind of telemarketing scheme on that podcast. There was so much passion and energy.
That's great.
Which was really, really good. So for me, my love of baseball came like from my mom. So it's similar from what you said with your dad, but and it really was odd because I got introduced into the card situation because of Cardco.
Ah.
So I went to Cardco back then and was comic books, and they sold obviously Cardco.
It was big back then.
So my mom explained to me about her love of Yankee baseball when she was younger. So she grew up on, you know, Mantle and all of that.
As a
stuff.
lot of people did back in the day.
Correct, because New York, you know, baseball
They were
was
everywhere.
on the, you know, the radio and stuff like that. So she kind of gave me a brief history of that, and then she talked about when the World Series of '77. I was a baby. I was almost 3 months old. She talked about rocking me watching Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs. It felt like she was going to drop me because she was so excited.
Yeah.
So by doing all that, and then so I immediately kind of just started following the Yankees and immediately clung into Don Mattingly as like that was going to be my ball player, and then followed him, you know, through his career to the sad demise of his back just failing him.
I love that we both have our favorite players be first basemen too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, Don Mattingly was one of the first cards I ever found. It was in a puddle. Picked it up, dried it out, very wrinkled.
Yeah.
It was the '85 Tops, Don Mattingly, and I had that card forever. I may still have it at home in my collection.
So the backstory of that is you and I talk a lot about baseball. And every once in a while we've talked about it on the podcast.
Lightly, but yes.
So I thought that since we're gearing up for baseball,
Yep.
we're in spring training.
Oh boy.
And we already have terrible news on the Mets. And the Yankees have,
As always,
once again, very high expectations coming off their worst season in 30 years.
Right.
That we would kind of talk about the highs and lows of following those two teams because they're drastically different. We're in Louisiana. We're not in the New York hubbub
we're out of that hub.
Type stuff. But I find it interesting how the Mets are basically your lovable losers because they are so frustrating. They go left and then they can go right just as quick.
And this is the history of the team, though. They were the lovable bums of the '60s who somehow pulled off a miracle, the Miracle Mets of '69.
Correct.
And then went on the most horrendous losing streak. And they were jokes. Casey Stengel, Yogi Berra as the managers. The Mets just found new ways to lose. They hired the biggest buffoons. They were a laughing stock of New York. They're the not to be taken seriously little young baby brother of the Yankees. It's always been the case like that. And every blue moon, they come back roaring with a team that's the best in the world.
Right.
The '86 Mets, obviously,
right,
being the last time they won a World Series. But they did go several other times.
Yep.
Well, not several.
2006?
2000, I want to say 2000, I think it was. The worst series ever.
Well,
Subway
2000
Series.
was when they lost to the Yankees, but they also played.
And then they played in
Royals?
2015 in the Royals, and that was terrible too. Because, but the thing is, though, they've come back and beat over in 2015. They really beat out the odds.
Right.
I mean, the Dodgers were just impeccable at the team, and we beat them. And then we go on to sweep the Cubs, which had the best pitching rotation in their history. And I even told Megan after we beat the Cubs, I told her, I went, we just won the World Series. She went, what do you mean? I went, there's no one harder than the Dodgers and the Cubs in Major League Baseball. Those are the two hardest teams, and they were. They were the two hardest. The Mets had the hardest. And the Royals, who were the Royals? They weren't even a big team. They weren't the biggest, baddest people out of the AL. They lucked out, in my opinion. I mean, they were a good team, but they won out, but they were not the best team on paper.
Yeah.
And I thought, we can beat the Royals. And, of course, no.
So getting back to that is just recently, at least recently in this timeline, their star pitcher for this year, because they have a ton of like hopefuls and what are you going to get out of these guys because they're paying so much to Scherzer and Verlander that they're like, hey, we're going to go by pitching by committee, and their star is done, at least for the beginning of the year.
I enjoyed, that was terrible. The World Baseball Classic, that the guy who celebrated breaking his,
not the closer. This year, it's their starting pitcher.
But even just back up from last year, another friend of mine, Dylan, is a big baseball fan. I talk to him, text him all the time. But I was for the Scherzer signing. I was like, he's worth it. He's proven that he's worth it. When everyone told me that Verlander signed, I was totally against that. I was totally against Verlander. I thought that was a wasteless use of money. And, of course, we ended up dumping both of these guys.
Senga is the guy that's hurt this year.
Yes. Senga's hurt. Yeah. And that's just – I mean, it's the Mets. What do you expect? It's a disaster before we even start the season. It's been like that for the past 8 seasons. The season ends before it begins for the Mets.
So let's backtrack just a little bit because they had a pretty epic fall last year after doing so well the year before.
And high expectations of last year, too. We thought we were going to go all the way.
They went from that to not, and Showalter was let go. How do you feel like Showalter was let go unfairly, or was that a good move?
I mean, probably, because we gave you the world, and you kind of botched it. I liked him, fine. Don't know what I think about the new guy holding out.
But Showalter has won everywhere he's been.
Yes.
He had played 2 years, one incredibly good, and the other was just very injury prone, lots of issues, lots of.
Yeah, but this is New York. The Yankees, you can say the same for the Yankees.
Sure. That's what I'm.
There's a long history of cutting out great managers,
and they've stopped that in the past 25 years, by far.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had 3 managers,
but I don't know. It's just one of those things. They're just trying to find their hook. There's a lot of them I've liked in the past. There's a lot of the managers I've liked in the past, but I don't know. It's just
so do you agree with them restarting their team this year to that degree, getting a new GM?
There's no choice. I think Steve Cohn has the money. He was told to spend it this way. The people who trusted, they didn't pan out the way he wanted, and so he cleaned house. As an owner, from an owner's perspective, I see that. I like an owner that cares. I hated the Wilpons. I despised the Wilpons. The Wilpons were bad for baseball, period.
Yes.
And when they were out, I think every Mets fan celebrated and rejoiced because Steve Cohn wants to win. He wants to win.
Do you think the most genius deal of all time was Bobby Bonilla's deal?
Huh. Well, I mean, everyone celebrates Bobby Bonilla to this day.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of players have done contracts like that since then, but he really started something pretty incredible.
Yep. The deferred payments, the waiver, just to kind of make money, pay him longer late for years later just to make that money up now, get that money off the books.
So
and now it's a common practice.
Right, yeah.
But
I mean, it's go-away money.
There ain't no other day except for Bobby Bonilla Day, and that's a day that every baseball fan celebrates and jeers about the Mets contract.
Max Scherzer's original deal, I think, with Washington was so much backloaded. A lot of these
There's
guys
a lot
are
of those
backloaded
now.
deals.
Yeah.
But Bonilla, they have become a laughing stock.
Yeah.
But really, it's not. They did something that most teams have still done to this day. I just find it interesting that it's tagged so negatively, but it's a common practice.
It's a common practice now, but back then it was just dealt as a bad deal, and everyone treats it like. Still, you're right. Everyone treats it like, wow, what a terrible, stupid contract the Mets did with Bonilla. Yeah, but that's everywhere now, dude.
Sure.
You just don't know. It plays into the average fan's ignorance.
Right.
Of how things work. But I get it. It was the first of its kind. It is very funny. It's crazy to think that Bob Bonilla is going to get paid for the Mets for years, and he's never going to have to do anything for the rest of his life, but just sit back and get his big payday every year. What is he getting paid right now, by the way?
I thought it was like $1 million.
It's over $1 million.
15 years.
It's over $1 million.
So it may have already ran out.
$1 million bucks. No, it's still going.
But it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's insane. So he's always on the payroll, and he hasn't played in 20 years or something. So
with your love of the Mets, has any of that, like, your kids are so young, so they can't appreciate that. Like, who do you share your appreciation for the Mets with other than your dad?
Dad's a Braves fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dad grew up a Braves fan. The reason I'm a Mets fan is obviously because they played in Jackson.
Yeah.
But Dad grew up a Atlanta Braves. Well, they were Milwaukee back in the day.
Okay.
And Dad grew up a Milwaukee Braves fan.
Oh, that's
and
like Eddie Matthews and Warren Spahn days.
And the first year they went to Atlanta, his dad took him.
Oh, okay.
So that was his first live game. So, boom, it's the Braves.
Sure.
For sure. It's the Braves forever, which I get that. That's a big impression as a kid. And so, but I didn't want the Braves because I grew up watching the Mets live. We at TBS had the Braves every night. And the thing is, yeah, we cheered for the Braves with Dad, but who did I get to see live? The Jackson Mets. And those players moved up to the Mets.
So is there anybody that like you're buds with that you talk?
I don't have any other Mets fan. I had one that I talk to every once in a while, but I don't talk to him anymore.
How about that?
But yeah, I don't have any Mets fans. I have people that are other fans of other teams, but I don't have a Mets fan to. I mean, there's some, they say they're big Mets fans, but they don't watch. It's obvious they don't watch the season, and that's fine.
Other than the heartbreaking losses of the 2 World Series we reference, what is your worst Mets?
The 1990 Mets.
The 1990 Mets,
yes.
Which was Strawberry's last year. Is that correct?
Strawberry's last year, drugged out. Doc Gooden, is he back at this point, or is he still drugged out? It's just they're total mess. Gary Carter is gone. Mackie Sasser replaced him. Mackie Sasser was a fool.
Hojo is on the team.
Yeah, and
Howard Johnson.
And the thing is, though, it's just a total mess. They have the most losses in history. They rack up so many losses, and they're just a laughing stock. Whereas 4 years earlier they were the champions, and people don't remember this, but they went to the playoffs in '88 too against the Dodgers. And played a good game, but just couldn't beat out Oral Hershiser. And
that was his miracle run.
The other, he was magic. And then that other pitcher, I can't think of his name right now, but they couldn't beat him out. So the Mets were literally 2 years removed from the playoffs. Yep. And we were all thinking that '89, man, we could have made it, but that's okay. We're ready for 1990, and we sucked. Just outright just fell flat on our face.
The Yankees 1990 was terrible
when
too.
When they fired the gun, we flopped at the very beginning of the start.
That's when Mattingly went down, and it was just Stump Merrill and all that stuff.
And the thing is, I always loved Mattingly. I appreciate it. I don't like the Yankees, obviously, being a Mets fan, but I always appreciated Mattingly. I thought he was a stand-up guy. In fact, I don't think I've liked another Yankee since. But Mattingly I've always loved, and I cheer for, even when he's a manager. I cheer for him. I want him to win because I think it's just a very likable, very respectable guy.
Yeah.
And Keith Hernandez is my favorite player of all time, but he's not getting to manage. They ain't telling him to manage. He's not managing material, but Mattingly is.
Yep. Well, I think his day has kind of come and gone, though.
It has, but that he got to get back into the game in the skipper seat is respectable.
Yeah.
Not many people have done that.
So by being a fan of a team that is so heartbreaking, at what point have you ever said, I am done with this, and what pulled you back in?
I mean, yeah, it's frustrating to watch them when they keep losing and stuff, and then you just kind of shrug. And then the meltdowns, the multiple meltdowns that they've had over and over at the end of the year. You know, they're winning their division. They're first place. They're 20 games ahead. There's only 2 months left. The odds of them losing, not getting the playoffs, are 3%. And then on the last day of the last game, we can't beat the last place basement-dwelling Pirates. They sweep us in 3 games by 1 run. 1-0 was how they're – we couldn't even score a run. And then we ended up missing the playoffs, even the wild card back then. It was so depressing.
What year was that?
I don't remember. It was one of the 2000s. But see, and then when we played against the Cardinals, it was 2006. I remember we went to the playoffs. I want to say it's 2006. We were down 0-3. We came back 3-3 against the Cardinals. When we were 0-3, I went to one of my best friends who's a Cardinals fan, went to his office, said, I will bet you anything we're going to come back and sweep y'all. He started laughing. He's like, Matt, I'm not going to take your money. I said, I promise you, the Mets have stopped losing. That's the last game we lose. And we won 3 back, and he started getting worried. Game 7, bases loaded, Carlos Beltran up. I knew we were going to get – he's the best player on our team, and he sits there and watches – full count, watches a strike go right across the plate. It was like someone had changed the ending to Titanic, and no one died. I was like, what just happened? I just sat there because I could not believe what I just saw was Carlos Beltran, our best hitter in the world. Look at one, not swing and miss. Watch one on full count go right across the plate. I've seen Kenny Rogers, who I'm glad we got rid of. In fact, he would have been shot in New York, who that was the worst World Series ever against the Yankees because you know how it ended on the call of ball 4 because the stupid moron could not throw a strike. He threw 4 balls, bases loaded, walked the winning run in. Y'all won the World Series on a walk. How pathetic. I mean, you won the other games really good too, but it was just pathetic. It was pathetic. And it's sad because we had such a great team that year and we just fell apart. It was against the Yankees, which is, of course, the bitter rival.
Right.
And I was super excited to have a Subway Series. Like, yeah, give us a shot. Yankees won out. But let me ask you that. Let me switch the tables on you for real quick.
Okay.
Yankees are expected every year to be good.
Yes.
So, I mean, they have a high – the Mets are – they laugh, and if they make it, people are impressed.
Right.
But no one expects them every year. Yes,
Correct.
There's high expectations, but they said the Mets will lose. It's only a matter of how. That's what every baseball fan knows that. But when you look at the Yankees, they're expected to be in the postseason every year. If you don't make it to the postseason, you have failed.
Correct.
If you did not make it to the World Series, you're a bigger failure.
Right.
So what is it like to have that?
I think the biggest challenge of being a Yankee fan is the frustration of the contract situation with most of the guys, that they are a team that will not make guys just walk off and pay them to go. Like, you could easily look, like, they've had guys like the Ellsbury deal was pretty legendary, and they tried to, like, get their money back, and a doctor got involved and all that. But, I mean, other than, I guess, A-Rod, they paid him that last year just to walk. But very rarely do they just, they almost, like, will run the guy out there just to beat him down to quit. But you can't do that to a modern athlete because they're like, doesn't matter. I mean, I'm going to get this money if I come to the ballpark. So that's the frustrating part to me, because there's times that even now with Stanton, it's time just to say, let's figure something out and let's wrap this up. Just
cut our losses.
It's dead money. Yeah. I mean, you do that in pro football, but for some reason, they are fixated on not doing that. And I wonder if Steinbrenner George was there versus how that would be how they would do business, or he would just say, let's cut our loss. Because in any relationship, there's a point where you go, I'm cutting my losses. Personal, professional, whatever that is. And I feel like that's the biggest frustration for me, is they just don't do that. Which you talked about Cohen doing that with Scherzer and Verlander, and just saying, we'll get prospects, we'll pay whatever. Let's just you know, and
Better
I
losses move
find
over.
that frustrating.
It is
But
frustrating to be built up like that and then to have no results come out.
But I think the thing for a Yankee fan, and I think anybody that follows it probably, when they lost the series to the Red Sox, it shifted everything for them because they've won once since then, but they have never. That was the end of that run for that team. That dynasty crumbled that night, and that was 2003 or 4.
Yeah, 2004.
But yeah, it was just, it has never been the same. So I can remember.
That's quite a while. That you're talking about 20 years ago.
Yeah, I can remember the night they won it in '96 because we were at Cass's sister's house, and I remember Charlie Hayes catching the ball and all that adulation, and I just remember sitting there thinking, man, it sucks Mattingly's not here. That was my original thought.
Oh, how kind of you!
Because it was like, that was my.
This man gave so much to the team.
Yeah.
And missed it. I felt the same about Dale Murphy.
Yeah.
When the Braves won in '95.
Yep.
I thought, it's too bad that their hero from the '80s, when the Braves started getting good, was the day they got rid of Dale Murphy, sadly.
Yeah.
And got a young David Justice. And all they finally put together that team, but the man that carried them, the
face of the
company,
place.
the man who played every game,
won 2 MVPs, I think, in the '80s.
But Golden Gloves, Down Mattingly won those 2.
Yeah.
He was batting titles. He was playing. He was playing hard when the Yankees weren't doing anything. He was out there giving it his all.
Well, there was a couple of seasons in the '80s when but that was when baseball was very structured. You didn't have all this extra playoff.
True, it was different back then.
And it was so. If it was a modern game, and I think that's probably what's kind of diluted. One of the main reasons of diluting is plus you have so many poor teams. But just getting back to being a fan of the Yankees, a good friend of ours, Casey. Is also, and I met Casey when I was 12.
Oh, Casey's a Yankees fan too,
and his favorite player was Don Mattingly.
Oh,
so
wow.
he and I have that bond
connection there
for many, many years. But I think that the toughest part of it is seeing how the organization is run, and it's just it's kind of puzzling until this year. Like they've had all this right-handed power when they were a left-handed power team for decades. And they have just been so right-handed until finally, they get Soto and you make all these deals. So I think what I like about this year that I'm excited about is they have so many guys like Soto and a few others, but basically this is it. If they do not win the World Series this year, that team that's in 2025 will be, I bet, 2/3 of the team, or at least half that team is different.
Oh wow!
I would say at least they'll lose.
So big stakes this year is what you're saying.
Yeah. So that's what I'm excited about this year is because I feel like they've got all these. If you're playing on a 1-year deal, it's like I'm playing for this year, but I'm also playing for next year.
It's all or nothing.
And they have a lot of that this team. I feel like finally their stakes are so high, and they put the pressure on changing some things up to make a difference.
All right, so let me ask you another question. Through the years, I've had several other favorite players. I've enjoyed Johan Santana. I've enjoyed David Wright. And I really love, probably my second favorite Met ever is Mike Piazza. I love Piazza. Love him. For a while, I questioned whether my love for Hernandez was as true as Piazza, but it is.
Is it the mustaches?
Oh, gosh, I guess it is. I love a player with a mustache, I guess. But there's my M.O. But Piazza he gave it all when he was hurt. He played through the pain, and I love him to death because of it. And I hate Roger Clemens for obvious reasons because he and Piazza never got along together.
Yeah, I listened to an interview with him, and he said out of all the guys he's ever hit, Piazza will not take his call when he's called to talk about it. Like Piazza still to this day.
No, Clemens was a jerk to him through the entire career. Clemens was the biggest jerk when the bat broke and went to Clemens threw it back at it. Why? It wasn't on purpose, but he felt like it was because Clemens is just a jerk. So steroid using jerk. So yeah, take that. But anyway, yeah, I love Piazza. But is there anyone else like that you're like, man, I really love this? This reminds me of my love for Mattingly. It's not as strong as Mattingly, but is there someone like that? Because the Yankees have had a lot of good people come and
Yeah,
go.
I would say probably Bernie Williams.
Really?
Because I was watching baseball, Bernie Williams' rookie year. There was like a Sunday afternoon baseball on like CBS, and the Yankees were playing at the California Angels at that time, and Bernie hit his first career home run that game.
Wow.
And I like Bernie played with the number 51, and they said the reason he chose that is because most of the time if you pick a number over 50, you're not going to be in the big leagues long, and he picked 51.
Shut up. Shut up. That's a great story there. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Another player that I really love is Bartolo Colon, one of the oldest pitchers to play in the game.
He also played for the Yankees.
He played for the Yankees. The Mets loved him back then. The New York Mets just loved him. He was a big goof, but bombed a solo home run once, which I thought was still one of the most hilarious moments in Mets history.
One of the most obtuse physical baseball players of our generation.
Still playing in the Indian League, the newly formed Indian Major League Baseball League.
How about that?
So late 40s now.
Yep.
But, you know, I mean, and still during his last year at 45 or whatever was pitching good with the Twins. You know, had a good go at it, but then the pandemic kind of just ruined any chances of him coming back, plus his age.
Sure.
But was throwing no-hitters against the Astros, the World Series Astros at the time. So, you know, he was still had it, but he was always, I like those older men my age. You know, he's one of the few people that were older than me that was still playing baseball that I could look up to.
Well, that's what it, you know, being a baseball fan, and you know, when we talk about the card shop and baseball, that was the year baseball came back, was the whole Sosa McGuire
After the strike.
totally rejuvenated the sport.
Agreed. We were totally watching everything on TV at the time.
But you know, to see that and to see how the game has changed now to such a younger player because of taking all of the performance enhancing
True.
out of it has really showcased the difference of the game to me.
I have another baseball-related question that's all the talk of the town. I've been asking all my friends this, and I realize I never asked you this. Bauer, Trevor Bauer, should he be given a chance to play?
There's got to be something there for all of these teams. When pitching is such a premium, no one will give him a shot. There is something there.
I think there is collusion in a way that the owners have decided we're not going to take this guy. He's too toxic to take on, too much negative media around him. Sure, proven innocent. You know, the girl lied and everything. But
there's
still,
gotta be something there.
Trevor Bauer's, that's a little messed up, the whole situation.
Yeah, there's something there that they're worried about if you bring him in, considering a lot of guys have come back from a lot of different things, domestic.
There's been
included.
worse. There's a lot of other people who've done worse.
But there's something there because you have, I mean, he's still relatively maybe just outside his prime to some degree.
I think he's got a few more years left.
But, yeah, no one will touch him. And you've got all of these guys just dropping like flies, and no one will give him a flyer.
It's a shame because I am in the let Bauer play camp. Just because, yes, not the best guy back in the day, but I kind of want to say that he's changed. Something like that humbles you, and you realize, I need to get my head on straight.
Well,
there's been a lot of young kids with a lot of attitudes. I'm not saying anything he did was right or anything, but I'm just saying maybe give him a second chance.
Well, I would say we normally give athletes a second chance. There's rarely been an athlete that has not gotten a second chance.
That's true.
To get some level of, let me make amends. Let me have one more shot in whatever that role may be. But he's, to me, if there's an unlikable athlete, and a lot of people are going to say Bonds, but I always say A-Rod. And that's probably because I'm a Yankee fan and was part of watching that whole situation unfold to where he's going to go to Boston, then he goes to New York, and it totally throws the dynamic of the team completely off.
That's good point there.
So I wonder if that, like you said, as great as he is, there's something there that just whatever wins above replacement he is, the dynamic in that clubhouse is going to shift so much that it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I think that's where they go with that. But anyway, all right. So look at that. Some sports talk here. Got some sports talk out of us.
The sports guys here on 98.7.
Hey, the river. Whatever that means.
Yep.
But anyway, folks, do you have a baseball team? Do you love a baseball team? How'd you become a lover of that baseball team? The best story I've ever heard is a Tigers fan told me, he's from here,
Yeah.
that he's a Tigers fan. You know why?
Eminem.
Magna P.I. wore a Tigers cap during a show, and he loved Magna P.I., so he said, well, I'm going to be a Tigers fan too.
Wow, another mustache.
Another mustache, but you know what? The best reason to be a Tigers fan, I think, too. When I heard that, I was like, that makes sense. I will grant you your Tigers fandom there. But anyway, folks, let us know. Great topic. Thank you, Wes. And we'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.
That's not my cup.